Hello, Sunnyside. What a blessing it is to be able to come before you at this time to just share some special things about the life of Dr. King. Before I even get started with that, though, I really like to call to your attention the fact that it's really important that you, as a voter, allow those people who you voted for to actually hear from you. Now, I've been mentioning to you the fact that in the city of Inglewood has this thing whereby if you were a resident, if you own property in Inglewood, that you needed to register between January 7th and March the 31st, and there would not be a charge. Well, it sounds as if the residents of Inglewood really got on the phone, or they really let those elected officials know that that was not something that they wanted to do. Hence, I've heard the mayor say that that requirement, because of all of the confusion was caused, they no longer are requiring that. So, as it turns out, if you own property and it's like 2 or more units and you're really owned by a company, then you're the ones that really need to register. And I say that because it just goes to show how important it is for you to stay in contact with your elected officials. Again, people that you put in office. Inglewood was really the first city to honor Dr. King's birthday as a legal holiday. So just be aware of that. And that has been going on for some time. In our own Stevie Wonder really was instrumental in making that a legal holiday. And if you think about that song, Happy Birthday, okay, it was really in tribute to Dr. King. With the many programs that Inglewood did, I'll share some with you. Here's one, Living the Dream, City of Inglewood, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, January 15th, 1990. This one, the keynote speaker was Shirley Chisholm, okay, a national figure. And here I have my son, who was, I guess, maybe about the 5th grade at that time, just smiling with Congresswoman Chisholm. On the back, however, back in 1984, Darby Park, okay, on Sunday, January the 15th, 1984, the Dr. Martin Luther King Community Center was dedicated with Martin Luther King III as its keynote speaker. And that was the time when my son ended up tapping him on the back, and he told him, you know, we talked about your father in my kindergarten class just yesterday, okay? So again, Inglewood has really been in the forefront for acknowledging Dr. King's birthday. At the same time, they were given permission to run off copies of the funeral program of Dr. King, and its program for that 1984 dedication service was in the center of his actual funeral program. So just be aware that Inglewood has been there for some very historical times. I'm going to come back to Dr. King information, but I wonder if you're aware of the fact that there is a West Coast monument that is dedicated to Dr. King here in Los Angeles. It's really at the Kenneth Hahn Regional Park there on La Cienega. So if you'll go to the very top of Kenneth Hahn Park, go all the way to the top, and to the point where you really can't go any further, get out of your car, walk over, just a few feet, you will see a monument that looks like the Washington Monument. It's smaller, however, but it has a picture a carving of Dr. King. And if you'll look, you'll see some of the words, I have a dream, that's printed there on the floor, there on the pavement. If you'll look in one direction, you will see, depending on when you go, you can see snow-capped mountains. I saw some today. You can see snow-capped mountains. You can see the LA basin. You can see downtown LA. But if you look in the other direction, you can see the Pacific Ocean. So if you have not been to Kenneth Hahn Regional Park, again, you have missed a beautiful view that is really hidden in plain view. The time to go, Monday through Friday, sunrise to sunset, it's free of charge. It's free of charge. And I would urge you to wear some comfortable shoes, because where the King thing is sitting, if you will walk that bowl, okay, and that's an area that at one time was filled with water, okay? And years ago, that water spilled, okay? Look that up, okay? But again, as you make your circle, you will have walked about 3/4 of a mile going around, but a beautiful walking area. Just be aware of that. As I think of Dr. King, I've been reading a book, and it's about the life of Emmett Till. And it was interesting in that as I was reading the book, any number of references were made from people who were inspired to become a foot soldier in the whole idea of getting civil rights. But they were inspired by the death of Emmett Till. And just, I believe yesterday, Emmett Till and his mom were granted a Medal of Honor, is that posthumously? Okay, by Congress. So just be aware of that. I'm in a position where I'm a quilter, and I've been invited to share some of my works with an art gallery in Surprise, Arizona. So to me, surprise. So I have about 7 quilts on display now. And at the same time, I was asked to do a workshop. They asked for the quilts for February, so during Black History Month. So to me, that would be no problem. But they wanted them during the month of January. And they wanted them before Dr. King's anniversary, before his birthday celebration. So I asked them, since you want me to do a workshop, what are you guys doing for Dr. King's holiday? And their answer was, they're doing nothing. So my question was, well, can I put on my workshop on Dr. King's Day? And the answer came back, yes. As I was talking to my sons, they called it to my attention that Arizona was the very last state to acknowledge Dr. King's holiday as a national holiday. So, whoa. All right, so just be aware. This 2022, I'll be making a presentation about the life of Dr. King in Surprise, Arizona. And I'm just giving you a glimpse of some of the things that I'm going to be sharing. Okay? Okay, please just be aware of the fact, do know, that Dr. King's life, as we know it, really centered around the whole idea of getting the vote. There are many reasons why each of us should vote. And here are some of the reasons, some of the compelling reasons. There are any number of things that were happening during the 60s and even beforehand, okay? Fire hoses, okay, and chances are this could have been in Birmingham, but it could have been in some other cities as well. Murdered in Jackson, Mississippi, 1963, Medgar Evers. The Greensboro Four were refused service. And again, that's at a lunch counter. Bombings, not just to churches, but to homes as well. Little Rock, Arkansas, okay? Here you have the Little Rock Nine. You have Black children that are going to, really since it was legal then to go to any school, they went to integrate one of the schools there in Little Rock, Arkansas. And even though legally they could go, the attitudes at the time were such that the president, Eisenhower, literally had to have National Guardsmen accompany each student to class for a year. So just be aware of this. These are the things that were happening during Dr. King's day. Okay, brutally murdered in Mississippi in 1955. It shows, it really shows that horrible picture of Emmett Till. And his mother said that she just really wanted the world. She wanted his funeral to have an open casket so people would really see what they did to her child, a 14-year-old. 4 little girls, okay? Even one was my classmate, okay? They're in Birmingham, Alabama, okay? 1963, bombing of a church. Now, I'll go into greater details with that in a bit. Murdered in Philadelphia, Mississippi, 1964. Again, Cheney, Schwerner, Goodman. A lot was going on during Dr. King's day. And again, these are the kinds of things that caused people to really want to get out and march. They wanted to get out and demonstrate. They wanted the world to know, hey, we are citizens as well. So segregated classrooms, Black children are still segregated in some of our schools, okay? The Freedom Riders, okay? Buses were burned. Buses were burned. And as they went from city to city, again, testing the laws of segregation, or really trying to bring down those walls. At one point then, the situation was such that they were literally blocked in, okay? But they were able to get out safely. Attack dogs. Marchers were bitten by police dogs. Again, I know this was in Birmingham. Clubbings. Marchers like John Lewis were beaten by police. Again, our history is America's history. Muhammad Ali refused to take a step. He said, I will not go 10,000 miles around the world to kill another Black person. Okay. Malcolm X was murdered in New York City in 1965. And that was after he had really changed his whole attitude about people, in that he came to just realize that all men are really brothers. And if we are cut, okay, we all bleed red blood. So it's time to vote. That's really essentially what it's all about, getting the vote. And again, it's as if things are going full circle now, okay? Durham, North Carolina, it says separate ain't equal, never was, never will be. Here's a picture then of 1968 prophecy by RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, in that he was predicting that within the next 40 years, there would be a Black president. And indeed, that did come true. But remember, many people made great sacrifices. That's something I really need to emphasize. They even died for our rights. It says, honor them by going to the polls and casting your ballot. Again, the least you can do now is to register. And after you've registered, follow through and vote. I'm going to share some of my quilts with you that deal with the life of Dr. King. And at the same time, I'm going to just share with you how he really came into prominence. I always start out by saying that Dr. King was a reluctant leader. He wasn't one then that was trying to get out in front and make a name for himself. He was literally invited to come forth. Again, he was one then that graduated from, I believe, Morehouse College when he was like 19 years old. So just be aware, he was very articulate, okay, very involved. And as a new person to Montgomery, he was invited to just come and really be a spokesman. He was invited because something was going on in the city of Montgomery, Alabama during 1955. And during my travels during the South, during the summertime, both my husband and I are teachers, we would try and just go to places of interest that we knew that we would be able to come back and just share information with our students. So we went to the King Center. We went to the King Center and no, it wasn't. We went to Troy State University, and there was a museum honoring Rosa Parks. And there I was able to come across this letter. And let me share it with you. It says, "This is Monday, December 5th, 1955. Another Negro woman has been arrested and thrown into jail because she refused to get out of her seat on the bus for a white person to sit down. It is the second time since the Claudette Colbert case that a Negro woman has been arrested for the same thing. This has to be stopped." Put a pin in it right there. Claudette Colbert was a 15-year-old girl who refused to get up off and give up her seat there in Montgomery, Alabama. But again, a 15-year-old, okay, not a whole lot of people, would perhaps follow behind a 15-year-old. But when you have someone who has been working with the NAACP, a mature woman, that was something else. The letter continues, "Negroes have rights too, for if Negroes did not ride the buses, they could not operate. 3/4 of the riders are Negroes, yet we are arrested or have to stand over empty seats. If we do not do something to stop these arrests, they will continue. The next time it may be you or your daughter or mother. This woman's case will come up on Monday. We are therefore asking every Negro to stay off the buses Monday in protest of the arrest and trial. Don't ride the buses to work, to town, to school, or anywhere on Monday. You can afford to stay out of school for one day if you have no other way to go except by bus. You can also afford to stay out of town for one day. If you work, take a cab or walk. But please, children and grown-ups, don't ride the bus at all on Monday. Please stay off of all buses on Monday." This woman who was arrested, her name is Rosa Parks. And don't tell me that we can't stay together, we can't work together. The people of Birmingham stayed off the buses the people of Montgomery stayed off the buses for 381 days. All right. So that next year, 1956, I think it was December 22nd, when the buses ran again, you could sit anywhere they wanted to, okay? Because that was the end of the segregated buses there in Montgomery, Alabama. As I continue, I'll share another quilt with you, okay? And this one was done, okay, this is one I did also. This one is the likeness of Dr. King. If you can kind of squint your eyes, the farther back you are, the more clearly you'll be able to see him, okay? But a quilt that I did on Dr. King. All right. As a teacher, I would often tell the students, Dr. King said so much more than "I have a dream." And I got to the point then that as students were doing reports and all, I realized, well, I was guilty of my own thing because I even did a quilt, okay? And it is called I Have a Dream. And I'm often asked, well, Miss Hurd, how long does it take you to actually do a quilt? And it actually does depend. As I look at my own writing on the back, I see that I started this in 1990, and the last stitches that I did to it was in 2012. So again, it depends. It truly does depend. All right. In teaching students, and I started out with 4th grade and ended up with middle school. And as I would bring things in during Black History Month, one of the students saw that I had brought in this album, okay? And again, it's trying to make history alive to students. And here you can see the number of people then that were marching, that were coming out. And this album this was in 1963, June the 23rd in Detroit, the Great March to Freedom. And when the student saw this, he got so excited. He said, oh, Miss Hurd, can I do it? Can I do it, Miss Hurd? And my question was, baby, can you do what? What is it you want to do? He said, can I scratch it? Can I scratch it? I said, oh, no, that's not what you do. Okay. So it just kind of lets you know that the things that we were used to is not necessarily something that kids of today are really aware of. All right. So moving right along. Again, I'm going to show you my last quilt no, it's not. I'm going to show you this quilt. Okay, and this one is a picture of Cynthia Wesley. Cynthia Wesley was one of the 4 girls that was killed in the bombing there of the church of 16th Street Baptist Church there in Birmingham, Alabama, okay, in 1963. As I was viewing the movie Selma, it showed the 4 girls walking down some stairs in this church. And it really kind of stunned me because I did not expect to see that in that movie at all. And as they started talking, it became evident that they were talking about the 4 girls that were killed in the bombing there in Birmingham. All right. So Cynthia Wesley was a classmate of mine. In that Friday before the bombing, we were both students at Ullman High School there in Birmingham. And that Friday before, we were just standing outside, just talking. And as it turns out, she was killed in the bombing of the church that following Sunday. So it's really something. Treasure your friends, treasure your conversations, because you really don't know what tomorrow just might bring. As part of my teaching, one of the books then that we covered in class was called The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. Really interesting, but it talks about this family that starts out there in Detroit or there in Michigan and ends up in Birmingham at the time of the bombing and the killing of the children there in Birmingham. I challenged the ladies in my guild to come up with some sayings or some slogans encouraging people to really take part in the census. And as the census came, we were kind of shut down because of COVID. But any number of us still made our quilts and all. Okay, I'm going to just share with you some of the quilts that I made. Not only did they encourage people to take part in the census, it really drove home the point, the importance of your voting. All right? Here, we were beaten, tear gassed, trampled by horses, and left bloody on that bridge in Selma. But we cannot rest. We cannot become weary. we must honor those who gave their lives for the right to vote. Congressman John Lewis, civil rights leader. Okay. Continuing on. I was beaten. My skull was fractured, and I was arrested more than 40 times. So each and every one of us can register to vote. Again, Congressman John Lewis. Not just him. Again, there were a number of foot soldiers. And again, Dr. King became really the leader of the movement. But there were a number of foot soldiers. That means everyday people, students who just got out and started marching. Jack Turner was lynched in Butler, Alabama in 1882 for organizing Black voters in Choctaw County. And here I said, I will vote to show respect for his sacrifice. Again, the rights and privileges. After Calvin Mike voted in Calhoun County, Georgia in 1884, a white mob attacked and burned his home, lynching his elderly mother and his 2 young daughters, Emma and Lily. And here I'm saying, acknowledge his efforts, acknowledge their efforts, register and vote. Okay. The whole idea of voter suppression is really, it's like things have just been coming full circle. Many of the rights and privileges we now enjoy came about because of the sacrifice of others. Sidney Hurd. Okay? Homes bombed, churches bombed, Black children killed. Voter suppression is real. And again, I have the states of Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky. It continues. If you've been watching the news, you know that there are more than some 400 plus voter suppression laws that have been enacted. Elbert Williams was lynched in Brownsville, Tennessee in 1940 for working to register Black voters as part of the local NAACP. Blood was shed. Sacrifices have been made. Show respect. Vote, vote, vote. Your vote is your voice. And again, I'm showing some of the receipts I received. Speak, scream, vote. As I close, it really is about this. It really is about this. All you have to do today is take the time and fill out a registration form. The stamp is already included. Put it in the mail. You don't have to worry about your house being bombed. You don't have to worry about you being killed or anything like that. But again, please do honor the sacrifice of others. If you'd like to become one that can get into good trouble, here's a way that you can do it, especially if you're here in California. Call your senator and urge him and her to vote for the Voting Rights Protection Acts. Okay? Protect the right to vote for all eligible voters. That is, press the passing of the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Your senators here in California, call for Dianne Feinstein, 202-224-3841. Again, 202-224-3841. For Senator Alex Padilla, 202-224-3553. 202-224-3553. Again, become a foot soldier. Okay? Let's keep the work up. All right. And just do know the pandemic is real. Do what you can to protect yourself and others. Okay? Do again what is in your best interest. And I pray that it is for the best interest of others as well. Thank you.